makes most women start a business? Is it passion, money, or freedom? Welcome to Female Founders, the podcast that takes you behind the scene with women who are founders and CEOs to help you start and scale a successful business of your own. I am your host, Nagelia de Ravin. Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Female Founders. In this episode, we are going to have a conversation with Lisa Duerre. She is the co-founder and CEO of RLD Group, LLC. Good morning, Lisa. I am so grateful to have this conversation with you. You and your husband, Randy, started Rebooting Leadership Drive, RLD Group, which is a very interesting name. I can't wait to get into that. And you are doing such an amazing job in a very tough industry. So what led you to start this organization?
Oh, thank you for the question. Thank you for having me. I am really excited to be here to share whatever is useful to your audience today. And, it's interesting. Why did we start RLD Group? So I think I'll just be transparent and give you the real truth. And that is that my mom was in hospice. She had about 6 months left to live. My daughter was around 2. She's around 2 or 3. No, my mom. Okay. So yeah, my daughter was around 4. That's the truth. Sometimes it blurs as moms, right? We just blur these dates. So I had spent over 25 years inside organizations in tech. And I really just started thinking about legacy and impact. When you're facing the loss of someone who raised you, right? In my case, my mom was my biggest cheerleader, my number one fan, and always really encouraged me to speak my truth and stand on what I learned and share. And I just kept thinking, what's my legacy? What's the impact we're going to leave on this planet? What's really needed right now? And so my husband and I, just in that process of grieving, he had lost his dad in the very same window as my mom. We just were realizing we wanted to take a stand. And we wanted to do something about a problem that we saw, and we wanted to help leaders go from liability to asset inside organizations, because when you don't know how to lead or run the business, but you're really smart technically, you're a liability. And we really just wanted to leave a bigger legacy and impact on the planet, right? And make the world a better place to work.
Absolutely. And leadership is something that a lot of us, we try to get higher and higher, but at the same time, we burn out so fast as well, especially as women. And we're handling so many different things, mom, the kids, the family, everybody else. So I can completely understand that. So can you tell us about your burnout story? So how that actually, what's led you to?
Oh, yes.
Because I heard a little bit about it, so I kind of want to know the whole story.
Yeah, I'd be happy to share, because here's the thing I know, and I invite anyone listening: when you share your story, you reclaim your power, right? When you share your story, you reclaim your power. Share it when you're ready. I'm not suggesting if you're not ready, but you can really reclaim your power in just telling what happened. So for me, you can tell I couldn't even remember how old my daughter was when my mom died. Like, that's just real for me, because that was in the midst of recovering from burnout. And so what happened for me, the symptoms were, it's so obvious now, but when you're in it, you can't see it, right? I was becoming more and more cynical, working harder and being less productive. I couldn't find my car in the parking lot one day. I had to call my husband and say, can you do that thing where the phone can find where the car parked? And I was frantic because I had to go pick up my daughter at preschool, and I could not find my car. And what had happened is I was driving and working and driving, not looking where I'm parking, staying on the phone, going back and forth. And I couldn't remember where I parked my car. So there was more and more of that, like forgetfulness, not being able to make decisions as fast, really not even understanding what was wrong with me, and just feeling broken and tired and honestly angry. And I was really angry at myself, because I just kept thinking, what's wrong with me? Why can't I used to be able to do all of this, and now I'm not. And so the culmination of the story, my wake up call, was that it was about 7:00 at night, and I was working in my office with a colleague, and we were working on a presentation for an executive team meeting the next day. And I just felt this like weird radiating pain going up my arm and into my neck. It was just really tight. And I thought to myself, women die of heart attacks all the time. Their symptoms are not the same as men. And I'm pretty stressed out and my neck and my arm are hurting. And it just kind of made me really worried. And so I leaned over to my colleague, opened my door and said, hey, I'm going to go run over to the hospital real quick and just have them check something. I'll bring my laptop. We'll get this done, but I'll be back in a few. She goes, why are you going to the hospital? Right? Like, hello. I said, well, I got this thing. And she's like, well, if you're having a heart attack, you shouldn't be driving and I'm going to drive you. Like, let's just go take care of you. But if you crash your car in the middle of this, there's more people involved. It could be really dangerous. And so she knew how to get to me from an influence standpoint that I never want to do harm to others, but I wasn't taking care of myself. So we went to the hospital. I spent 5 hours in the emergency room. And around midnight, they came back and said, okay, you didn't have a heart attack. I'm like, well, what's wrong? We don't know. So in the meantime, I'm still working on the PowerPoint, send my boss a message and say, hey, you can count on me, badge of honor. No matter what, I get the job done. I'll be there in the morning. Right now, I'm still at El Camino Hospital, straight up, right? Call my husband. I'm like, hey, I'm coming home. And he's with my daughter and worried about, should I go to the hospital or is everything okay? And I'm like, no, it's fine. So I did the presentation and then I went to the doctor and I was just like, I don't understand. And I was really feeling scared and broken and tired, overwhelmed. And I was pissed off too, because I just wanted to know what it was. And my doctor, the sweetest man on the planet, sits down next to me, puts his arm around me and says, listen, you have Silicon Valley-itis. I'm like, I have what? Like, are you what is this disease I have? I didn't even know what that meant, right? Because I was so like, huh? And he says, this is the number one reason I see people in my office every day. You are burnt out, right? You could call it any tech company's name itis, but he goes, I'm going to call it Silicon Valley-itis because it is rapid heart rate, inability to sleep, loss of productivity, cynicism, weight gain. I mean, all of it, right? Whatever chronic health condition you're facing. And what had happened for me was I had had bronchitis for about 8 weeks. And the on-call doctor, when my doctor was out, I had gone back and said, I can't keep coughing. I have to present. I need to talk to my team. This is horrible. And so they prescribed a new antibiotic. And that antibiotic had an allergic reaction for me, which caused muscle tear and tendon tear. So what I was feeling was muscle and tendon tear, not a heart attack, but I don't know this. And so he said, the only way to feel better is to take a break. And I have to tell you, as a female leader in a tech company, one of the very few executives in my division as a female leader and a relatively new mom, I mean, she was in preschool. I'm like, oh, hell no. I'm not taking a break. They're going to put me on the sidelines. No, I'm not doing it. And he was like, if you don't, you're going to be back here. Can you just, and I'm like, nope. So I leave and I tell my husband, Silicon Valley-itis. Can you believe the blah, blah, right? And my husband's like, yeah, I believe it. I know who I'm married to. I can see all this, right? So anyway, my husband encouraged me to continue to have the conversation with my doctor. And finally, about 3 weeks into it, I said, okay, I'll take a medical leave. And I wouldn't even just take it on the spot because I was so committed to the job and worried about my reputation. I couldn't just disappear on a leave. So I planned for it. And I took 3 months off and I've never slept so much in my life. I was so tired. Yeah. And then I got mental health. I went to a therapist. I got nutritional health. I went to a nutritional counselor. I started moving my body more. I did a lot of introspection and journaling. And then when I went back to my job, I was really worried that I'd be labeled as broken. And what I found out was I actually inspired a lot of people because I took care of myself. And it wasn't really rewarded at the time. It was just kind of swept under the rug. And I think everybody just thought, well, she'll just keep getting it done. Let's not talk about that she needs a break, And I gave up my power. I didn't ask for the break. So it was a real culminating event when I went, okay, I'm not broken. I'm depleted. There's a big difference between broken and depleted. So I'll pause, but happy to answer any questions about it. And since then, I've, really worked on it and I still burn out, but it's shorter stints and I catch it much quicker. And so I don't need that 3 months. Sometimes I need a weekend. Some days I just need a day off, and I'm working. I'm a work in progress. Yeah.
I think we all are a work in progress. We'll always be.
Yeah.
But one thing is that's as women, that one thing we do, even of all this, you're in the hospital, the doctor is telling you all these things. It's got the funny thing is you're telling your boss, oh, I saw the picture of you. Actually, I did saw that picture of you with the laptop. I'm like, she is actually really working. She is doing it in the hospital.
In the hospital. And I said, I was so proud. I'm like, let's take a selfie. Like, this is the badge of honor. Yeah, we put it in our video to show it. And my colleague who's in the picture, I got her permission. And she's like, yeah, I should have been much harder on you too. I'm posing in the selfie, supporting you getting the job done because we were a team, right? And I'm like, that's a badge of obligation and lack of self-worth. That picture, when I look at that picture now, I'm like, it makes me really sad. And I don't want anybody to ever take pride in a selfie at midnight in a hospital bed because you're still working. It's not good. It's why I do what I do now.
Exactly. But all these things created something bigger than yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're supposed to go through all this to get to where you are right now. So
yes,
I think that selfie represents something way more than that. It represents the fact that you will never let yourself get into that same situation again. That's how I see it. Mm-hmm. But it's amazing as women how much we actually, when we said we're going to do something, we just stick to it. We get it done, even in the hospital bed. It's just amazing. We don't see that often.
The multitask is quite fascinating, right? Because really you're depleted too. And it's interesting you say that. I appreciate the lens you're putting on that selfie because it is something for me. It's almost, it's something that I'm really glad I have the picture for those reasons, to reflect back and to remind myself. But in that moment, like when I look into my eyes in that picture, you could tell how tired I am, but I'm still proud. Like, I didn't make it home for dinner with my family, but I'm working in the hospital. Like, what? So really trying to better understand, what do I want to embody? What do I stand for? And what do I stand against? Right? I stand against giving the badge of honor of, this always on, and then what's underneath that is never good enough. No, we are worthy and you are amazing. And if you're in the hospital, you can skip that presentation. You might have to make a phone call and ask someone else to do it. But that's the world I want to live in, where your health matters, your mental, physical, spiritual, financial, all of those health areas, that they matter enough that you can say, yeah, not going to make it tomorrow. By the way, I got out of bed and went to work that next day. Right? No joke. Presented.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I believe that. I have no doubt.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Thank you for asking. It's interesting to revisit it. Do you know? Yeah,
I was curious because I watched a few of your videos, and that's the part of the story you kind of get into, not too much, but you kind of get into it. Mm-hmm. And I was just curious to know more about it, Yeah. And then I was looking at the selfie and everything. I'm like, oh my goodness. Yeah, she's a woman. Honest, and I said, she's a woman.
Right? Yeah, bring home the bacon, fry it up in a pan. That song, You know what's interesting, if I could just lean in on this for a second. So one of our clients recently got promoted to the next level leadership role. And I was about to give him his 360 feedback in a meeting, and we popped into Zoom, and he kind of looked like I did in that selfie. And I thought to myself, they say your mess is your message. So I looked at him and I said, hey, how are you? Like, how are you? What's going on? And we always start with celebrations in every session we do, because that raises your energy, and we don't celebrate enough our own achievements. So I make it safe to celebrate, but we couldn't even celebrate in that call. I was just like, there is something going on. So I said, I took the report, right? And I set it down and I said, I don't want to do the 360 today. I want to just hold some space for what's going on for you. Like, what are you comfortable sharing? And I found out months later, we were closing out the coaching engagement, and he said, that day that you just put everything aside and you just poured into me, he's like, that was the day I decided that I didn't have to leave my job because my self-doubt and shame. These are my words, not his. My self-doubt and anxiety that I didn't have what it took. Like, I was just really down on myself. And in that moment, I was really nervous about the 360 results, right? Because I wasn't sure what they were going to say. And I was just so grateful that I had my selfie in the hospital and that I can read people and know what that's like. So I could just meet him where he was. So you're landing that for me by just asking me and saying that, because when we coach our clients, it's not just the leadership skills, which believe me, we do a lot of, but it's really what is your mental model and what are your limiting beliefs and how are you holding yourself and what's going on in the background processor that's in the way. And I think that picture, if I could run that background processor again, it was just all fear-based and scarcity. Yeah, I appreciate you bringing that up.
Oh, it's my pleasure. So now let's talk about rebooting leadership drive, which is for short RLD Group. So can you tell us about it? What is it all about?
Yeah, so rebooting leadership drive. So the world that we're in now is not the world that we were in 2 years ago, 3 years ago, right? The disruption, the way that the world is being described now is called Bonnie, and that stands for brittle, anxious, nonlinear, and incomprehensible. I'll just pause for a second, right? Supply chain shortages, the Great Resignation, COVID, racial unrest, war, what's now monkeypox is floating around, jumping worms. Like there's these worms that can jump a feet in the air and they're ruining the forest floor. Like if that's not brittle, anxious, nonlinear, incomprehensible, I don't know what is. And so rebooting leadership drive is really about helping people navigate the world we're in as leaders. And I'm going to tell you, it's two sides. It's leading teams and people, but it's also leading yourself. Right. And so what we do is we help leaders unlock their own magic. We discover their own strengths, understand their blind spots, their belief systems, and then also give them the skills and tools to not only lead people, but lead in business. Because in our world, the people that we typically help are usually rewarded, recognized, and promoted for their technical expertise, whether they're a software engineer, a hardware engineer, a finance analyst in tech, whatever that is, they're rewarded for the technical skills. And what gets missed is helping them really understand themselves so they can then better lead others. And that's what it stands for. So we're rebooting your operating system. We're rebooting the code. Mm-hmm.
Love it. So I will guess that is there's the meaning behind the name.
Yes. The meaning behind the name is that what you know about leadership, we need to download and upgrade into your system, right? There's some bugs in your code. We're going to help you fix them.
I love it. I think there's other things we're going to get into that I cannot wait. But what is the services or the programs that you provide to leaders?
Oh, I didn't mention that, did I? I just talked about the code. So we are a coaching and consulting services firm, and we have a collective of coaches and consultants that support anything from individual executive coaching to large scale system change to group cohort programs where you bring a group of leaders through, maybe high potentials or recently promoted. We really just meet the companies where they're at, and the pull through, if you will, is that it's leadership and business skills development.
Got it.
So coaching, if I was to, just say coaching and consulting, sure, but it's very specifically about culture change. One of our taglines we like to use is we take culture change out of the clouds. Right? Because it's just, if you just have it on the wall with your values and you're not living it and you don't know how to own it and see it, we had a problem. Right. And that starts at the individual level with each leader, really getting clear on their connection to the values and then how they want to have those values in action at work.
So you earlier you spoke about a program, I think it was 360. So is that is that one of your program that you have?
Yeah. So 360 is when basically we have a coaching engagement. We get a list of names of people, and a lot of firms will just give you a computer survey to fill out. Tell me all about Lisa. How kind is she? How is she under stress? Is she inclusive? What are her communication skills? Does she delegate well? Whatever you're focusing on in the business, right? Then you just fill out a form. And I'm going to tell you, I am firmly against that. I stand against 360s that are computer generated. We want them to be, and what I stand for is the human connection. Because when I'm asking you questions and I'm reading your body language and listening for the unspoken, we get much more data that's useful to the client. So a 360 is one part of a coaching engagement. And that's something we stand for. They are live, they are two-way. And that way we can really get to the heart of what really matters. And we have a standard set of questions that we'll agree with the client and the engagement. But we always, I will say, and we always do that through language and connection, not a computer.
Actually, sorry about that. There's nothing more important than having that human connection. It doesn't matter how much we try to take that away, but nothing else can replace it, because when we connect with one another, things just happen compared to us just being in front of a computer. 1, 2, 3, sleep time.
On a scale of 1 to 5, how often and how important is it? You're like, wait a minute, that's not even getting into the heart. So I will say one of the things that, if you were to say, like, why is RLD Group different? I'm going to tell you it's because we're heart-based, and we use the framework of appreciative inquiry and positive psychology in everything that we do. So every interaction you're going to have with someone on our team is going to be life-giving and generative. And that's one of the reasons I think that the conversations in the 360 experience are so good, because the leaders that are giving the feedback walk away better too. Oh, I hadn't thought about it that way. Oh, that feels good. Wow. You know, when you ask that question, it opened this up for me. So they're really getting a part of the experience and working with us and being a part of that 360. And so many times we end up doing spot coaching, because they'll say, well, I really want them to know, I really wish they delegate more. And I'll say, have you told them? And they go, no, I don't want to offend them. I'm like, well, what if we were to frame it as something that would actually help them? In other words, hey, boss, I have 20 years in corporate communications. I'd love to work on that all hands meeting with you. I think I can add value in these areas. That's not, hey, you don't delegate enough. That's, I want to bring my best forward. Or, hey, I have a really great idea on how to solve that bug in the code. You know, and my great idea, I'm worried about bringing it up in a large setting, but I really think it's worth exploring. Can we talk about it? You know, there's a way to bring things up to get your work noticed without, burdening the boss. But so many times they're just like, I wish so-and-so would do this. And we just say, well, have you brought that up? And then we work with them and coach them on how to bring it forward. And that moves the needle too, rather than just some report. So absolutely, it's pretty powerful stuff. Yeah.
I love it. You're using the tech, but at the same time, you bring in the human touch into it, which is make it powerful.
Yeah. I feel like we put the human inside of tech. I think people forget that, we are humans in a human experience inside a tech system, making tech great. But yeah, at the end of the day, our colleague yesterday lost someone in a car crash. Someone that they love died. And if we were just like, right, where's that report? Get that thing going. Like, no, we stopped everything, had a conversation. What can be moved? What do you need? And really focused on creating the space for that person to grieve, because grief has its own process, and you can block it, but it's still going to be there. And so why wouldn't we meet the human where they're at and with our hearts and do what we can to support them? So it's very much pulled through everything we do.
Absolutely. We're not a system, well, we're not a system human build. We were built differently. So we need special care. We still need to vent. We still need to cry. We still need to scream, and we still need to yell when we need to. And we still need that shoulder to say, hey, I'm here to support you if you need that help.
Yeah. So I feel like one of the biggest gifts we can give ourselves on this planet is to give and receive love and give and receive help. And sometimes that's the same thing. Like love looks like, don't do that report right now. I got it. Right. That's what love at work looks like. I got your back. So yeah, I feel very strongly about that.
Yes, love comes in different ways. So
yeah, I like love belongs at work, and people are like, what? I'm like, not that kind of love. Right? Love of humanity, love for one another, appreciation for the value of life, and when loss happens. I mean, how many moms are juggling their kids being quarantined again because of a positive COVID test? If you love that person, you do what you can to help them be successful and take care of their family.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So
dads too. I don't want to be like so generic. I'm going to say dads too are dealing with quarantine children. I'm always trying to catch my language.
Oh, no, it's not just you, even me, because I own a woman company. So when I talk a lot, I always say woman, but at the end of the day, there is dad out there that is actually taking care of the children because the mom passed away or sometimes the mom left. So
yeah,
I guess that dad become
traveling
mom.
on business. Yeah. I was traveling last week and my daughter called, Mom, Dad doesn't want me to call you right now, but he fell outside. He slipped on the porch, right? I'm worried. But I don't want him to feel like I'm telling on him because I know there's nothing you can do, but you should know, right? And I'm in another state and I'm like, honey, you did the right thing. Thank you for calling. Bring him some Advil. And then I'm going to call him in about 20 minutes. She's like, okay, got it. Right. And I ended up telling dad, right? Telling my husband after it was all done. But yeah, like the dad could be running the show and then he slips on the porch and he can't go to the meeting. You're going to be like, what do you need?
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's a teamwork. It's a teamwork.
Yes, we are all in it together, right? And we rise together. We're stronger together, for sure.
Absolutely, we are.
Yeah.
So let's say when you work with corporate or big companies, so you're pretty much coaching the leaders, right? Are we talking about like the top leaders, or are we talking about just the one that's in the bottom trying to get to the top?
Oh my gosh, we help everybody in leadership roles. And I'll say this, you don't even have to have people reporting to you to be a leader in your own life and in your own role, right? So depending upon the situation is how we approach, right? So we're going to go into every situation and try to understand what's going on first, ask a bunch of questions. We do a whole discovery process to make sure we're not just going to be like, here's a workshop you need. We don't do that. We customize, we co-create. So yes, do we work with the C-suite all the time? Do we work with the brand new, newly promoted leader the first time that they have anybody reporting to them? Absolutely. And do we work with people before they get promoted to set them up for success? 100%. And everything in between.
And also a woman that is just starting, let's say that they own their own company, perhaps with 5 employees, they need more leadership skills, and then to better lead the team also, you will come in and help them.
Yeah. It's interesting because people are like, why do you say you only help tech? And I say, I never said that, right? I don't say we only help tech. I say we help leaders in tech. And what I know about what's happening in this world is eventually, every company is going to be a tech company. They're going to have an app or some sort of online store or something that has to do with tech. So I giggle a bit because people are like, you can help anybody. I mean, we work with nonprofit leaders. We do a lot of work with very small startups and everything in between. But, in general, we say rebooting leadership and rebooting leaders in tech because our collective has all been inside tech and in those rooms and made those decisions and sat in those seats, right? So is it transferable? Totally, right? But yeah, if there's a 5-person business just starting out and they're like, we really want to figure out how we build culture or how we build our leaders, of course we're here. Absolutely.
I just wanted to kind of clear that out for everyone that I know you focused a lot in tech, but that doesn't mean you cannot support any other company that needs your help.
Absolutely. Yeah. We actually, one of our partners that we do some work with, the majority of our work is with an organization called Women Back to Work. And they're basically a staffing agency that supports Silicon Valley. So that's like they're in tech, but they're not a tech company, right? I worked with a nonprofit director for a sports initiative, and we helped her onboard and assimilate into a new team, right? So that's just me personally. Our collective does so much more than that. I'm just thinking of 2 things I've done recently, but yeah, we are here to help anyone reboot leadership drive for sure.
Absolutely. And now we're going to get into a very interesting conversation because I cannot wait to know why you picked that name. So I'm very curious. Control, Alt, Delete, Podcast.
Mm-hmm.
How did you come up with that name? Actually, I want to know.
Yeah. So Control, Alt, Delete is our podcast that we use in many ways. We invite anyone who listens to bring the podcast into their business team meetings. Listen to it, talk about it. We do a double dog dare, like here's something to do, like take action. So it's on YouTube and it's also on any podcast platform. Control, Alt, Delete, the name really came from me telling my burnout story over and over and sharing it with friends. And, what did you do differently, Lisa? And how did you come back? And I said, I Control, Alt, Deleted. And I was actually, I was talking with someone, I was doing something for the Chinese Institute of Engineering. I was a keynote speaker, and I was talking with the sponsor of the program, the organizer, and we were having coffee, and he was just asking me about my story. And he goes, you Control Alt deleted. And I said, I've been saying that, but hearing you say it back to me, that lands it so beautifully, because I did. When your program has too much running in the background, you can shut Word, you can shut, PowerPoint. I'm making up these things right now, right? But you still have it running in the heck, even for our interview, you were like, close all your stuff so your CPU has all the power. I mean, that's the guidance you give for your podcast. So I just had too much stuff running in the background. And that's when we decided Control Alt Delete. And what happened was I started doing LinkedIn Lives and just sharing my story. And I kept getting told, you need a podcast. This needs to be a podcast. You got to make this a podcast. I was like, okay, it's a podcast. I don't know. And so it was a very organic, natural thing, but very specifically, Control Alt Delete is really about shutting down the programs and rebooting yourself, your mindset, your beliefs, your skills. And that's how we came up with that name. It was really just how it was being reflected back to me when I was talking about it. And then how I started integrating it into my own awareness. Like, yeah, I did do that. Oh my, look at that. Like, it's kind of cheeky and it's a little play on words, but it's real. So yeah, Control Alt Delete with Lisa Duerre. That's the podcast.
And you know what? And then from the beginning, I can see the connection between Rebooting Leadership Drive. It's kind of like there's a connection between them.
Yeah,
both of them. They're like, it's connect. It's amazing. I just wanted to know the story behind it, because how did you come up with that name? It's very different and never heard of.
Oh, thank you. It's funny because we have our little sign, right? And we didn't want it to look like keyboards. I wanted it to be a little more artistically treated, to not have it just look like it's a keyboard thing, because it's way more than keyboard functions. But I'll be totally transparent with you too. So RLD, when we formed our business after my mom had died, I was just like, we need to get this business started. We need to start consulting, call it whatever. And we landed on RLD, which is the initials of Randy, Lisa, Duerre. Okay. So this is the truth for all the small business owners that don't know what to call their business, right? They were like, just DBA later, just name something, get something filed. But I really, in my heart of heart, knew that it stood for something. So it might have been like radical leadership development or resourceful leadership drive, or like we played with a lot of it. And at the time, I was just like, form the business and we'll figure it out. And then the second thing, if I can honestly, for any small business owner, these circles right here, there's 5, right? I always knew that our process, it was about being whole and being a part of the system. So this can be a system. This can be one step at a time. These can be your thoughts. Sometimes it's like a wheel of life, but I knew these circles. And so we're always like double clicking into a circle and coming back out when we look at things. But it wasn't until the podcast that we landed on Rebooting Leadership Drive.
Wow.
Yeah. So RLD, it was like, I guess I just want to invite everyone to trust their intuition and take the smallest next right step. Because if we hadn't have formed the business, we wouldn't be here today. But by no means were we clear on the name. We just knew we wanted something that we could name later. And so we landed on our initials. And it's just so beautiful when you think about, like, what does your subconscious know that your conscious, like even your prefrontal cortex right now doesn't really get, but like you feel it. And so I always knew it was RLD Group. I just didn't know what it stood for in the beginning. And I'm very clear what it stands for now.
It's amazing how when you put the two names together, how powerful it is.
Right? Mm-hmm.
Like the same thing you were just saying earlier, how being with a partner, how powerful that can be. Look at the name. Rebooting Leadership Drive. Who knew RLD, which is stand for your two guys' name, will end up with that at the end. It's just
right. Amazing. I know. Yeah. And we did a lot. I mean, as small business owners, we did a lot of voice of the customer interviews and talk about what it means to work with us. And, what is it like when you're around us? And it was always like, I always come away with more knowledge and new thinking. So we just kept hearing that over and over, new knowledge, new thinking, new knowledge, new thinking. I thought, oh, that is rebooting. So it all, I think the invitation for everyone, because I used to come up with the names of our departments inside the corporate world that I was in. And same thing. We were like EDO, and everyone's like, what EDO? I'm like, employee development org. But I was like, employee designation, like we were just like playing with all of it, and it just stuck. And so I had that past experience of naming departments and companies and programs. So I think because I just had a knowing, and I just love that it lands this well with you, because that was my highest hope, is that people that experience us, whether it's through the podcast or working with us, whether I'm speaking on stage, whether I'm, in your conference room helping you with your offsites and our team is consulting, that you really do feel the same pull through, which is head and heart alignment, so that you can upgrade your operating system.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I just love everything you are doing. I spent a few days just learning about you. It's just amazing. So you also have the Real Talk with on YouTube. I'm thinking that is the video version of the Control Alt Delete podcast.
Right. Yep. Real Talk with Lisa Duerre. So the vision is that we will always have the podcast of interviewing clients or interviewing subject matter leader. Let me back up. Interviewing experts with me in the podcast. It's life-giving to me. I love being in those conversations. If anyone watches the video, you can feel it, because I get all, Real Talk is more about, I want to say this in the most purposeful way, the stuff that really pisses me off that it's time to talk about.
I like how you take the moment to say it.
I'm like, I got to really own this one, like layoffs just to manage budget. Hell to the no. That is a short-sighted, outdated method to run your business, right? With hybrid workplace, making everyone come back to the office because you like to be around it. You are not factoring introverts. You are not factoring working parents. You are not factoring hidden disabilities. Stop it. Like, that's Real Talk. I'm like, hey, right? So we have that channel and we put all of my videos there. So sometimes you can see both. You can see the podcast, and then you can just see me going, stop it. Let's not do this anymore. And here's why. And I'm also not saying that I have all the answers. I might just show up with a question or be frustrated. One of the things lately I've really been focusing on is about inclusion and belonging, because I've really been suffering with some hidden medical conditions that the world doesn't see, but greatly affects my self-esteem and my mobility. So I've been really paying attention to how much I'm learning. So some of my Real Talk videos lately are just me going, I had no idea, but now I do. And now I'm going to do something about it,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that this company too, they forgot the fact that human trafficking and slavery, slavery has been over for too long. Why do you have to make your employee feel like they are a slave to you? So they have to do because you said it, because you want this. Is that really what you want? Because unhappy employees not going to make you better. It's just going to make your company worse. That's how I see it.
Yeah. I really appreciate you bringing that up. There was an article, I wish I had it in front of me. I think it was New York Times. They were talking about Jack Welch. I don't know if you're familiar with Jack Welch from GE.
Mm-hmm.
But Jack Welch, when I grew up, it was like GE has the most amazing leadership development programs. And if you go through that program and you stay at GE, you can be a CEO other places, right? It was like a real true training ground. And it was very command and control. And they used words like agile, but all that really meant back then was like, figure out how many companies to buy so you can make your number, right? Yeah. And it was really disheartening to me being growing up in the Jack Welch era, thinking like, this is everything. And now I'm like, that command and control leadership is so outdated. It is not serving our people. It's not serving your profits, and it's certainly not serving our planet. And so we're elevating that conversation and talking about it. And it's not easy, because it's very much like you've been taught that that's how you do it. So it's more unlearning, right? And tapping into your heart, tapping into your intuition, and then also your humanity. How do you like to be treated?
Sure.
I mean, it's like, I make this face all the time. Like, isn't that the most like obvious first question? Like, what feels good? Because when it feels good, you're going to be more loyal, more productive, more engaged. So we work a lot with leaders to just even help them with the right questions to even start their team meetings with.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. Because if you start with celebrations, I'm going to guarantee you're going to get more work done. If you
That's for
start with
sure.
what's wrong, okay, everybody, here's all the things you didn't get done last week. No. Hey, what are we celebrating? It was a rough week, right? A new variant came out in COVID. Half of our team got sick. 3 of our team had family members in the hospital, and we still got XYZ done. That's amazing. Like, that's where you start, and you also can start in your body, shaking your hands, wiggling it out, because you're in back-to-back meetings all day and you store all your stress in your body. And if you're not moving your body, that stress is going to stay stuck. And that's going to send signals to your entire system that something's wrong. So how can you possibly be innovated or feel connected or even figure out how you can stop something from going awry in the customer base if you can't think straight? So it's all the little things that add up. But yeah, command and control. What's wrong? Peace out.
That should be done a long time ago.
I agree.
Somebody should have done something out of it.
We would be different leaders today had it been.
Yes, absolutely. So what do you think is the number one thing that causes burnout with leaders?
Oh, I'm going to give you 2 because it's complex. So number 1 is that the individual is giving away their power. They're not realizing how much knowledge they have or how many deposits they've already made in the bank, and they're not asking for what they need. So silence, like just giving away power, is definitely a contributor to burnout, because that leads to limiting beliefs. And then it leads to lack of support because you're not vocalizing or asking for what you need. At the same time, it's leaders that are so busy being technical experts, they're losing sight that they have the honor. I think it's an honor. It's a privilege to be leading people, and they don't see it that way. So they're just always focused on technical, and that's a recipe for burnout when you're not focusing on the people and what they need, much less what's going on around them. And you're just focusing on, give me the quarterly report, or give me your sales numbers or your forecast, or why is this not fixed for this customer, right? When that's the lens that you look at work, you are contributing to burnout. I think it makes you the number 1 liability in the burnout equation.
I never seen it that way.
Yeah, that's my hypothesis, my thesis, and what I stand by. Yeah.
But you are right. But when you saying it to me and I'm thinking of it, I'm like, yeah, she makes that's so correct. Yeah.
Yeah. You know what? It's almost like I was talking to somebody, it was on our podcast. I think I was talking to Angelique Brewers. She's a media commentator, and she runs a services firm that helps small businesses who want to sell to corporate. And we were talking about the disruption. And she was telling her burnout story too. And what was in common for both of us was giving away our power, not asking for what we want, assuming it's not possible. It's like we were talking about, like, what's the story we're telling ourselves? Like, what are the rules? And the beautiful thing for me that I remember all the time is I grew up in human resources. My degree is in business. I was a human resource professional for years before I made my way out of the HR function into the lines of business. And so I knew what rules were firm, and I knew what rules were bendy. There's a lot of bendy rules. There's a lot. Command and control is like all the rules, right? Flexible is, I think, one of the key differentiators. A flexible work environment, a flexible leader, a flexible mindset, that can help with burnout prevention. Moreover than let's rewrite all the rules. It's like, no, what is unique for this person? What control do we have, and how might we make it work? But there's all this worry about precedent setting. What if we set a precedent? You're doing it anyway. It's just not the one you want to set. You're burning your people out. They're leaving and they don't want to come back. And then your Glassdoor reviews suck. There's your precedent. Like, Real Talk by Lisa. Here we go. Right? Like, hello. Right? Yeah.
Oh my goodness, you are so real.
Yeah. At this point in my life, it's time, right? When you have a calling and when you're clear on what you stand for and what you stand against, it's a lot easier to get real.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
But do you think that burnout is more common with women than men?
I think it shows up differently for women and men. And I think men's burnout is more acceptable, and I'm thinking this real time with you. So like the men that I know that burn out, they just get like more angry and more command control, right? Because when you're burning out, you feel like you're losing control. So you latch on and you get more, right? So that type of leader in a male body is more, I'm going to say respected or understood, or they're given like the leeway, right? When a woman does that, they're, labeled aggressive, bitchy, controlling, right? But they're both going through the same thing. It's just the way society views how you show up in the gender that you identify in. I would say the second thing is when you look at the unspoken labor that is in the household in general, I'm generalizing now, but a lot of that falls on the women, right? I read this book, Fair Play, and Fair Play is all about redefining the roles in the house and who does what. Because and this is the generic version, but when the husband, I'm going to do it even better than that because I'm working on language. When a partner takes the child to the birthday party, it's already on the calendar. The birthday present's already bought. The outfit's already made. The call's about who's been COVID and are you vaccinated? Like all that stuff happens upstream. But the person that takes the kid to the party gets all the thank yous. Thank you for bringing to the party, right? There was 12 steps before that. So Fair Play actually outlines all those steps and says, hey, that person taking to the party, thank you so much for that. But now I'm off grocery shopping because you're, so really looking at that whole thing. And so I think when you look at burnout, one of the indicators for me is how much of that unspoken labor is held by one person. And in general, we know that that's women, moms, women, caretakers. But I'm really trying to catch my language so that we are inclusive and make sure that if it's disproportionate, I don't care what your gender is, it's not okay. Right? If you want to have a dual income, double working system in your household with two people that have jobs, you got to figure out how you run the household too, because that's a job too. A
full-time job.
It's a full-time job. I think right now, the thing that's hot in the news is the formula, how there's no formula available for moms, and having breastfed and formula fed. I can tell you want to talk about burnout fast. If you as a leader are not looking at those people in your system who are struggling to find food for their child, they are not going to be innovative in your workplace right now. I think business has a real opportunity to make a difference in stuff like this and raise awareness and do what they can and not make it the individual's problem. But I'm not saying that work needs to be your family, but the system with the power that lies, corporations have way more power than even influencers on social media, like the Kardashians, right? Like, yeah, you legislate, you have your corporate governance, you have your social responsibility arms, and go make sure your employees can get formula for their kids. Go be a part of the solution.
But Lisa, I look at it, it is a family, because look at it this way. When you used to work for corporate, you leave your home, let's say 7 o'clock. Right? So sometimes you don't get home until 8, 9 o'clock at night, especially as a leader. So you spend your entire day in that one location.
Yep.
And you do it all over again, all over again, all over and all over again. So that is a family, because you see these people every single day. You talk about with them, you share your personal things with them. That is a family. It's like you create another family.
It's interesting you say that, because I can see where you're coming from, and I'm not saying you're wrong. I just define it differently. To me, family is above all else, I will do anything for you. And that's not the same at work, right? Yes. If my sister needs a kidney, I'm going to go give her a kidney, but my colleague needs a kidney. I'm going to go raise money to help you find a kidney. Do you know, like there's a delineation. And I think where people get resentful and where people really start to overgive at work is when they label it a family. Because the leaders may not view it the same way as you, the people that are making the decisions, setting the policies, right? I think you can have love at work, but I don't think it's a family. That's through my lens, right? And I think it's a fabulous conversation to have. I think everybody should be having this conversation to get clear on where you aligned on values and where you aligned on standard operating procedures. Like we grocery shop on Sundays. Right. But I don't think every family grocery shops on Sundays, but that works for us. Do you know? So yes. I think it's a very important dialogue to have. And I don't think you're wrong and I'm right, or I'm wrong and you're right. I think it really lends itself very well to the conversation about values, operating procedures, and policies.
Absolutely.
Because you can't lay off a family member. You might cut them off for a while, but they are still related.
Yes, but when I said family, I don't mean like in a family way of the way you will look at your husband and your kids, your mom, your sisters. But I look at it in a different way as a family of work where we can relate to one another at work, where you can help me and I help you, support me and I support you. Totally. And I can understand you as a human being, where you're coming from.
Yeah. And that's why I say love belongs at work. Exactly. I think we're saying the same thing with just a different label for it. But absolutely. This is why I say that, you should be helping with the formula crisis, because you care. I think it's about caring, and honoring the humanity of the people that you spend more time with, and sometimes your family.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. So what are your future goals for Rebooting Leadership Drive?
We're on a mission to eradicate burnout in tech. I don't know, just that small goal. We're going to eradicate burnout in tech, right? And I say it and I mean it. And that really comes from developing leaders to be people that people want to follow and bringing the heart into tech. And I think fundamentally, when I look at it as a business owner, we really want to be the 3 Ps: people, profit, and planet. We want to make sure that our give back is really in the areas that really matter for our own values. And that what we're doing is that we're leaving people better than when we found them. Right? We want to be shining the light.
Yes, absolutely, Lisa. But there's a little problem, Lisa. I don't think it's a small goal. I think it's a huge one.
It is. Well, this is why I went back to when you said, why did you do it? And I was like, what's the legacy and the impact? So here's what I know about goals for myself. I think for the general populace, but if you don't set a goal bigger than what you think is possible, you're not going to give as much as you need to give. Right. And so if I can imagine a world where people leaders know business and people leadership skills, that they know how to bring out the best in their team, that they are flexible and intuitive and mindful, that makes resilience easy. And with the world that we're in, with the constant disruption, the non-linearity, I can't even say the word, the non-linearity of the world that we're in, the incomprehensibility of what we're facing right now, I believe that the way to eradicate burnout in tech is to help leaders build their flexibility, intuition, resilience, and mindfulness. And I take that very seriously. But yeah, it's a big ass goal. What do they call it? Big hairy ass goal. Is that right? Audacious. I said ass, sorry. Audacious. Big, hairy, audacious goal. Eradicate burnout in tech.
Yes, but it's going to make a huge impact. So not a small impact, just to be straight, it's a huge impact.
Thank you. I feel like a lot of the tech companies right now are working on climate control and climate change initiatives to bring us back. And that just lights me up like nothing. And same with cybersecurity, keeping us safe. Automating things for people that are able-bodied in a different way. I mean, tech can do so much good for this world. I want to be a part of the good.
Yes, and we have to take care of these people so that they can continue doing good.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because those people in your cybersecurity team who are burnt out and the hackers show up on Thanksgiving and the people haven't seen their family for 2 months and they can't wait for Thanksgiving. The hackers know that. They're going in on Thanksgiving and running amok, and then everyone's back losing out on that family time because they're worried about safety. And they're burning out because their amygdalas are constantly on hypervigilance looking for threat. So how do we take care of them? You staff more than you need. You build more expertise so people can take a nap, take a break. You help them. You don't constrain them.
Yeah. And that's where you come in, Lisa, because they need your help and they need your expertise and they need you to open their eyes to see that what they are doing is only hurting us, the planet, and then also our next generation. If we can step back a little bit and then open more doors and then create better programs, better things, that would be better for everybody.
Well, I think we're in alignment there because what you're doing to help all business leaders, women-owned businesses, small businesses, large businesses, it's just a joy to have the conversation today, to have that. You can feel the energy, right? We have that alignment of core values about making the world better than it is today. And I'm just so grateful that we had the time together to talk about this. Do you think giving me the platform? Yeah.
And thank you so much for being here with us, and I appreciate it. Before I let you go, as a great leader and a successful businesswoman, what is your message to women who are just beginning their journey as a leader?
Wow. My message to women that are just beginning their journey as a leader.
Yes.
I have a lot to say. I'm just scanning through it because this is very important. Why don't I give a tip and an invitation? Would that work for you? A tip and an invitation.
Yes, please.
Here's the tip. There's something that we help people with on a regular basis through our programs called the Soundbite Strategy. What I find women leaders do is they think their work should speak for itself. And I want to give you a tip right now so that your work can get noticed, because this actually helped me get promoted 2 levels in 4, I think it was 2 levels in 4 years, which is unheard of, right? You get one at a time and do your dues. I want to share this with any leader, especially female leaders, those that identify as female leaders, because your work is not going to speak for itself. As much as we think that's the way it should be, it doesn't work that way. Your boss is busy looking at other things, worrying about the next thing. So the Soundbite Strategy goes like this. When someone says, "How are you?" or "How's it going?" I have a feeling your answer is usually good or busy. It's good. We're busy. You're like, "Great, we just landed this deal and it's amazing." No, right? So thinking about what your answer is to that question, what is it you want people to know? And it could be something that's going wrong. You know what? I'm really focused right now because our customer just told us that the code we wrote for them doesn't work. And we've got all hands on deck and we're going to be working through the weekend. That's actually useful to the person who asked you, right? Or, "How's it going? You know, I was just on this podcast today and my heart is so filled with joy because I was able to speak my truth and it was received in such a good way. I'm really proud of the work we do at RLD Group." Right? That's really what, if someone asked me today, I would say that. And the reason for that is they know, oh, she's on a podcast. Oh, she's talking about our values. So thinking about the answer to your question, like remove good and busy, give specifics. And the more your specific can be to the person asking, the better, because then they're going to be like, "Oh, can you come to our team meeting and talk about that?" Or, "I need to know more about that. I had no idea that was going on." So I write about it. It's on my LinkedIn blog. It's on our website. But let me just pause and say, don't give away your power by answering with a generic answer. Tell them how it's going and then go for what you want. So your work doesn't speak for itself. The second thing, what really worked for me when I was growing my career was finding a sponsor. That's different than a mentor. Like a mentor is going to give you advice and tips and share some ideas. A sponsor is going to open doors. So look for somebody who believes in what you do and ask them to help you open doors. And it might not be like, "Hey, can you open the door to the CEO?" But it might be, "I'm really looking to build some strategic relationships so I can get more results in this role. Who should I be building those relationships with? And would you be willing to make that introduction?" Like that's what that looks like. And that's game changer.
Both are interested. I never never heard of that before. And I love the way you put it down. It's like, yeah, we reply like that every day. "How's your day?" "Good, I'm busy working." Yeah, sound familiar.
Right?
But the way you put it, it's like you're giving so much information in a very small amount of time.
It has to be a small amount. People don't want to hear a long-winded blah, blah. They're shut down, right? I think that's why people say good or busy, because they think they're being helpful, but they're actually not helping themselves or the person who asked. Because basically it's an invitation to share. How are you? How's it going? It's a massive invitation.
Sure.
One of my tricks on that I tell people is to get on the Zoom early. And then you have small talk, right? People are like, "Hey, how's it going?" Always. That's always what they ask you. Go for it. Practice there. Practice with your family. I bet they don't even know what you really do.
That's true.
Because you're busy and they're hearing you on the phone. But, your kid says, "Hey, how was work today?" Which I know is a hard leap. They don't normally do it. But let's just say they did. "Honey, it was great. I had these 2 meetings and I felt really proud about this. And over here, I was a little nervous. And how about you? What was school like today? Were you proud? Were you nervous?" Like, it's such a better way to connect with people. And I can tell you, even when someone asks you and you give them the answer and then you ask them, that's really gold. "What about you? What's something you're working on you're proud of? Or what's something that's frustrating you? How might I help you?" It's a totally different conversation than "How's it going?"
Yes, you open doors for many things that you probably don't even know about.
You have no idea. Yeah. And people aren't even conscious of it. They're
No.
asking you out of autopilot, and then you're going to pattern interrupt them and go, whoa, man, that Lisa Duerre, when I ask her, she gives me information that's useful. We should have her in that meeting.
Exactly.
It happened all the time. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, Lisa, we can go on for the entire day because you have so much to give and so much to teach, and then so little bit of time, unfortunately. But I thank you for being here with us, and thank you for sharing your knowledge and for everything you are doing, because we need it. And we need a woman like you that is true, that is just going to step out and just speak the truth. It is the truth. We don't want to hear it, but it is the truth. And I'm grateful to meet you. I'm
so grateful to meet you. And I will say thank you, because it's not easy to receive for me, right? I always like to give. I say thank you for the platform and the conversation, to really look at what you're doing. Like, I don't say yes to all interviews, right? I'm very selective, because I want to make sure we have alignment and it's not ending up with you where we're just not even being able to be of service. And what you're doing matters. And your community matters. And I'm happy to pour in today. And thank you for having me.
I love having this conversation with Lisa. She is amazing, and her spirit just makes you feel welcome. Thank you, Lisa, for taking the time to have this conversation with me. Let me know your thoughts about this episode. And to learn more about Lisa and RLD Group, visit www.rldgroupllc.com. Thank you for listening to Female Founders Podcast. That's it for this week's episode. Be sure to follow us on your favorite podcast app or connect with us on womel.com so that you don't miss our next episode. See you next time. Bye for now.